So Servant Season 3 just started a few days ago, and I had watched Season 1 about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, during the lockdown, and I never caught Season 2. I just forgot about it, but not in a I didn't like it way. I saw that it was airing and I just didn't get to it. And then when I saw Season 3 was airing, I was like, oh wow, I'm really behind. And then, of course, this one here, hadn't seen Season 1. And it had been a couple of years, so I was like, it's only 10 episodes. They're only 30 minutes apiece. We can knock this shit out really quick. And we did. We watched it in 2 days. And we could have probably watched it in one. Mm-hmm. Had we had the time. Yes. But Miss Sleepy McGee over here.
Sleepy McGee.
Yep. So, Servant. This first episode is directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Shamalama Ding Dong. And now, he has involvement with this show, but from what I could tell, it was created by someone else. But correct me if I'm wrong on that, and he actually was involved in the creation of this show, or if he just directed some episodes. I don't know. But it was, of course, his name was being attached to it because he's the bigger name. But I don't think he was creator of the show. But as I said, remind me. So we're just gonna kind of we're gonna go through every episode one after the other real quick, and just kind of give you our thoughts of each one of them. And we'll be doing this for Season 2, hopefully here in the next couple days, and then we'll start doing Season 3 weekly. Because we needed a new weekly show that falls into the horror genre. Mm-hmm. And this is one that's currently airing. So I was like, oh, we need to get on this. Let's get to it before.
Gotta get caught up.
We'll definitely be caught up by the time episode 2 airs and should be on the day of episode 3. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to do that. So for now, we're just going to run through the first season. And what did you think of the season?
I liked it. I think it's a really suspenseful show. Mm-hmm. The whole time, you want to know what the fuck is going on. So it really drives the mystery well throughout the season. Yeah. And I think all the acting's really great. The characters are all, I shouldn't say, well, I guess, all of them are kind of shitty in different ways. So I like that none of them are perfect, and you're not really rooting, at least for me, I wasn't rooting for one particular person, just because of how they're portrayed as being, not great people.
Sure.
And I mean, it's definitely creepy and unsettling at times, and I think just the main thing is how, mysterious everything is and wanting to know, what's going on. That's my takeaway, at least.
It's a very odd show with very odd characters. Things feel realistic to a degree. Mm-hmm. There's definitely a little bit of disconnect from reality going on here, right? As I've always called it in the past, is reality adjacent. It's real close,
but not quite.
Not quite. It's just off. Now, of course, with the whole premise of the show, which if none of you or some of you have not even heard of this show is, and it's tough with that. If you're here for spoiler-free thing before we get into the spoilers, the synopsis of the show is kind of tough because I feel the way this show was advertised was The Boy, which was that this girl was hired on as a nanny to come look after these rich people's son, and when she gets there, the kid is a doll. And in The Boy, the kid remains a doll throughout, the film. As to where this one, that's not the case. But the show was advertised like that was going to be it. Mm-hmm. Right? And the twist comes at the very end of the very first episode. So that is, and of course it's M. Night Shyamalan, so it has to have a twist, right? But I remember seeing the trailer and being like, well, how's that going to be interesting for an entire season? Right? Like, what are they going to drag that out to? Like, The Boy alone's an hour and a half movie, and I felt like that was dragging itself out, and that got a sequel, which is, it literally made my top 5 worst films of the decade.
Oh, wow.
I hated it so much.
I haven't seen the second film. I've only seen the first one. And
You don't need to see Brahms' The Boy 2. It's not necessary. But anyway, spoiler for what the twist is at the end of the episode. They hire this girl on. She comes into their life. She's treating the doll like a baby, like a real baby, because the mom is mentally unwell, and she did something which her baby died, and her nanny comes in, and the dad is like just playing along with it to get by, and hopefully in a few months or however long, they're gonna try to slowly wean her away from the doll and be like, this isn't real. Your kid is dead. This is a doll. But so she's pretending it's the doll, or she's pretending it's a human, a living human baby throughout the episode. But she's not pretending. The nanny and the dad can't figure this shit out. And then at the very end of the episode, there's a real baby in that crib.
Yes.
And pretty much the whole season is just, where is this baby from? Is this person trying to blackmail us? But there's also this and the mom never notices.
No, not
the
once.
difference.
No.
And it's just them. It's her, and it's her husband and the mom's brother that are really trying to figure out what the fuck does this girl want? Where the fuck did this baby come from? But of course the mom and the dad are, the mom, of course, she doesn't even notice the difference, but the dad's kind of teeter-tottering because he wants his son back.
Sure.
And so he doesn't really want the kid gone, so he's not pushing too hard, but he is definitely, perturbed. And,
yeah,
and he
as
wants,
you would be.
Yes. But that's what I'm saying. The reactions of people on this show are believable-esque.
Sure.
Believable-ish. Right? It's like, come on.
Right. I mean, there's definitely some situations that happen in later episodes that the reactions feel very not realistic. Like, you would not be that way in that situation.
Crib scene.
The crib scene in particular. And also some of it too, they're a wealthy couple. So, even just the idea of hiring a nanny that's going to be taking care of your kid pretty much 24/7. Some of that I have a disconnect with just because, it feels so foreign to what I would do. Yeah. And so I think that kind of played into the reality adjacentness for me. But also, the show, as far as I can tell right now after the first season, is obviously, dealing with grief and how we,
Sure.
Get through that. And definitely the mom and the dad are both, I guess more so the mom, but, it's a really unhealthy way that she's coping. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that as far as their reactions go, and for him to kind of want the baby to maybe stay, it does make sense, when you look at it from that angle. He's grieving just as much as she is, and wants a baby.
Yeah. I feel terrible for the brother, and I feel terrible for the nanny towards the end. When they introduce the nanny, she's portrayed as the villain, and towards the end she's portrayed like the main victim. But I'm not sure of that yet. We could be being duped because as we learn throughout this show, there's a lot of things that aren't what they seem, which is of course with this. The woman who, the actress who plays Dorothy, the mom in this, is just perfectly insane.
Yes.
And I think she gives, I think they're all great, but I think her role requires the most range, and she gives the most range. Her, just her overall demeanor, her overall attitude, her overall everything. She's got that rich, snobby bitch who's trying to pretend like she's with it and gets it and is loving and, inclusive. She's got that down pat. She's got the like completely on edge, blocking out the reality of the situation thing got going on. She's got the depressed woman in the bathtub, just sitting there.
Yes. She's like drinking. So yeah, I think her performance for me is the best because it is the one with the most range. The first episode too, like just the close-ups, like the shot of her looking over at Leanne and like her smiles and everything. Like she's so unhinged in such a believable way.
Yes.
Because I mean, I've interacted with people like that, like people who are really trying to appear put together, but their eyes are psychotic. And you can see that they're just like kind of hanging on by a thread, which that's her this whole season.
Yes.
Like she's just one step away from just losing it all.
Yeah. So, yeah. And of course, I think M. Night Shyamalan is one thing that people are going to talk about with this show. And the other thing would be Rupert Grint. Ron Weasley from Harry Potter plays the brother in this, and he is kind of the comedic relief, if you will. But the show's pretty serious. As far as like where I would rank this in horror, it's horror enough that I understand the label, but this is yet again one of those titles so far. We'll see what season 2 or 3 brings. But this is more of like that dramatic thriller more so than horror.
I agree.
But that's not to say that there is not horror-ish moments. Like fucking open wounded demon dogs breaking into your house and the baby turning from a doll into a human and back, like that kind of shit is super horror. So I get the horror label. I just don't think that this is going to be Channel Zero or something. It's not that kind of horror for sure, but it definitely has that feel to it. But all right, so episode 1, Reborn. This is the M. Night Shyamalan episode. He directed 2. I think he directed a episode like... Did I write it down? Right, he did one more of them. It's like episode 8 or 7 or something. But anyway, so episode 1, Reborn. You've got the religious nanny hired. The husband, Sean, is a chef at home, which seems like a pretty cool job. Now, you have to sit through a decent amount of pretty gruesome animal death.
Yeah.
It's more like water animals, right? It's like squid and eels, and there's a lobster. And
lobster one is not as bad.
Not as bad. It's the typical. He just puts it in the boiling water. The eel one's probably the roughest.
Yeah. It is.
Leanne, the servant, or at least, yeah, she's the servant. I was gonna say like I was thinking maybe the title is like some double entendre or something, but then later in the show they refer to her Aunt May and Uncle. I have it written down.
Don't remember the uncle's name.
Uncle George.
Uncle George, yeah.
She refers to her as like, no, she's our servant.
Yes, yeah.
Now, we're jumping ahead there, but I don't know what the fuck that means. I don't know what she's doing. And I guess that's really the thing to discuss here. I mean, I took notes on every episode. I honestly don't even think it's super necessary. I just took it in case we wanted to do episode by episode reviews, but that would take too long. And every second we spend sitting here, we're not watching season 2. So I do want to streamline this quite a little bit, but yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what I think about what's happening with the baby. And because, okay, in the show, she is, whipping herself. And through that pain, she brings a cricket back to life. Then later, she goes into the room with the dead dog, and then the dog runs out of there alive. She leaves the house, and the baby turns into a doll. Now, is this a proximity charm spell? Does she have to be within a certain amount of feet? When the therapist friend who got her the doll in the first place, when she comes over and she comes in the room and she tries to touch Jericho, Leanne gets really defensive, grabs her by the hair, rips some of her hair out, and then runs off with the baby. But when the therapist goes in there, she's looking at the baby like it's a doll for a second before Leanne grabs it and runs off. But then when she sees it again, it's a baby.
Right, but we don't see what.
She sees. No.
Yeah.
And there's a very clear distinction between the baby, which looks humanish, for sure.
The doll?
Yeah.
The doll is supposed to be
Human-like.
lifelike, for sure. The way it moves, you have to support its head like an actual baby. I mean, the whole show, I think everything, it's why is the baby a doll sometimes and why is the baby living other times? And
it's mostly living.
Initially, I had a few theories where I thought it was Sean went into a different timeline.
Yeah,
I don't think that anymore at all.
I don't think so.
The proximity thing I really like as well, but I also feel like Leanne is able to affect reality with what she believes. So I had this idea that maybe it is a doll. It's always a doll, but because of her, perception of it, it affects everybody else's perception, so they see it as a living baby, although it's still just a doll. And I like that idea. I think that that's a cool one because it gives the opportunity for one person to see it as a doll and another person in the same room to see it as a baby and to have that disconnect. There's a really great scene in one of the later episodes where she's left the house to go on a date, and Rupert Grint's character comes back and it's a doll, and he's hanging it over the edge of the staircase, and she's like, "Don't, you wouldn't hurt it," when she returns, and it turns into a baby last second.
Well, the doll doesn't turn into a baby, right? So he goes to drop the baby doll. He hears a cry from a baby, so he catches the doll right as he's dropping it, and then he's like, "It's somewhere in the house."
Oh, you're right. I'm remembering that scene wrong. It doesn't turn into.
It does not turn into a baby. Yeah. But the baby is heard.
Yes.
As if she's hiding it somewhere in the house. Now, maybe 4 or 5 episodes in, Sean is talking to Julian, the brother, and he has this theory that she is this teen mother, and she basically finds out about this crazy woman who has a doll, and she's like, well, this is the perfect grift. I can sneak my baby in. This woman is so gone that maybe I can convince her baby's my baby, and then me and my baby can live on Easy Street for X amount of years, and when the time comes, I'll just vanish with the kid one night.
Sure, yeah.
And then what? Take a blood test and be like, it's my kid.
Yeah.
I don't know what the law would be on that exactly. I don't know how that would work out in court.
I mean, it's
registered your kid under this, but it's not actually your kid. It's a big grift.
That
would be a really weird, case. Yeah.
I think that's a good theory too, but it doesn't make sense why she would switch out her baby, with a doll. Why, if that's the case, why not just keep her baby there all the time? Because it's going to be cared for like a baby. So when she's out or when she's in another room or whatever, why would she even do a switch out?
No, I'm not saying that's what's happening. At this point, I definitely know this is not what's happening. She brings a cricket back from the dead. She brings a dog back from the dead. there is a cult that's after her, and are like, she's our servant. Now, this reminds me of an X-Files episode. Actually, I think the very most recent episode that we watched together with the little preacher kid who can like fix people's ailments.
Yeah.
And so this guy keeps him as this, employee, essentially, the slave. That's like, you're going to do this work for me so we can become rich off of your talent. And he saves this person's life and all this. I'm not going to get too much into the episode. Doesn't matter. But it kind of reminds me of that, of like, she's the one that can do the parlor tricks. She's the one that can bring people. Now, the mom, Dorothy, she recognizes Aunt May when she meets her, and she's like, where the hell do I know this chick? Now, she had already previously met Leanne when she was in 2011, and she met her at a beauty contest for little kids, which is straight up child abuse, by the way, everybody. I don't know why you guys do that to your kids. It's fucked up.
It is.
But she met her when she was a little kid, and that is where Leanne got obsessed with Dorothy and just watched her on TV every night. She was like, who tucked her in at night. She saw her as a mother figure, basically. So she wants to come in and live with her as part of the family. But she then recognizes Aunt May from something else. She can't figure it out, so she goes through her discs to find her report on this cult who gets raided by ATF, and they go in and they start. There's an explosion, and then she starts shooting people up. Now, Julian takes his PI friend, and they go out to where she is from, Leanne's from, and they go to her house, and her house is burnt down, and then they find both her parents' graves together. Now, her parents died. She probably didn't, as the aunt says, and they took her in. Now, in that raid of the compound, I can only assume multiple of those people died, and that Leanne was able to bring them back. And then they were like, you need to be here. And when she left, they probably became corpses again in the congregation. And then she has to return to bring them back to life. Right?
Yeah.
That's my assumption. Obviously, I haven't seen season 2 yet. So maybe, I'm sure people who are watching are like, that's not what happens. Or, yeah, that's what happens. Or, now don't tell us. Although I'm probably not going to read the comments until we're done with season 2 and caught up, just in case anybody's a dick. And it's like, hey, here's what happens. But so I have to assume that she has the power to bring people back from the dead through atonement, right? She punishes herself because
flagellation. She
goes in, and is that when you fart?
Self-flagellation.
Self-flagellation. Stupid. So she reads the Bible like every night. She's very religious. She makes a freaking cross out of like corn stalks.
Yeah, twigs.
Husks.
And husks.
Husks, I think. And then she writes the names of the people in her Bible before she starts praying and whipping herself. Now, she's trying to get them to confess to their sins. Now, for what reason? I feel like maybe they have to repent and they have to admit what they've done so that this can remain, right? Like, she's basically granting them a wish.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe they're not worthy. And the people around who were somewhat responsible. The brother's not responsible at all. It's just that Dorothy leaves her child in the car, That's a rough scene. That whole episode is just rough to watch.
It's awful. I don't get the sense that Leanne wants them to like confess and repent in order for it to remain permanent. I feel that she like was idolizing Dorothy, thought that they were these wonderful people, and then she starts to see, you know, that they're not great, and kind of hearing that something happened with the kid. So I feel like that's her breakdown of like, you know, she had put them on this pedestal and they're falling off of it, and so she's finding out more and kind of deciding that they aren't worthy of her help, which is what her aunt and uncle you know, are trying to convince her of.
What the hell's the uncle doing when he's going down? Uncle George goes and he talks to Sean in the basement, and Sean tries to pay him off because he thinks they're trying to blackmail him, offers him the 84 or 87 grand, and he's like, no, I don't want this. And then it's basically like, you need to ask for what you want. And Sean has to admit that he wants his son back. But then they just take Leanne anyway and their baby.
Yeah. Well, obviously there's some kind of side effect to whatever prayer session that is, because afterwards Sean is seemingly lost all feeling in his body, or maybe just his hands.
Sure,
but throughout
and
the
no
show,
taste either.
Yeah, he loses his taste, which is, you know, his livelihood.
Shit, I wonder if he'll lose his vision.
Yeah, I was
He'll probably
wondering.
smell next.
Well, I was wondering too, because like he's getting splinters in all these places, and he had one like behind his ear, and I was like, is he gonna lose his hearing? And so yeah, maybe smell or vision.
Vision
but
would be
he's lost
last.
feeling, obviously, because
Yeah.
he burns his hand over an open flame. So I don't know. I mean, the cult is a mystery as far as kind of like what their goal is. We just sort of got a taste of them this season.
Very little, yeah.
Very little, and a lot more of it is focused on
The Church of the Lesser Saints.
Much more is focused on Leanne and Dorothy and Sean's relationship. So I don't know. I'm very excited for season 2, though. I really want to watch it and see what happens.
Yeah. So, as far as Dorothy goes, so there's this kid that was reported missing in an Amber Alert. She goes up and she starts hanging out with this kid, thinking it's one of the people who cames kids. And she sits down with her, and this girl has a little doll. And in that moment, she kind of realizes what she's done. Now, she reflects back upon this in episode 9 throughout. And then in this episode, this is the last episode, I think it finally dawns on her completely that her baby is dead. That was a doll they replaced it with. And now she has a baby. So I think that fantasy is broken. And when she goes in the crib and she sees that the kid is gone and there's just a doll in there now, she's not going to see Jericho, the doll, as Jericho, the baby anymore. I think that illusion is no more. And of course, they're going to want their kid back. And so they're going to try to hunt down Leanne. Now, there's a cop that drives by at the end, and they're all, gathering together for a big group hug. And then he drives back like 2 seconds later, and they're gone.
Like completely
gone. Did they vanish? Is she able to like teleport them? Is she able to like actually, or maybe even make them invisible to everyone's eyes as they walk away? Like, is she able to completely distort reality around her?
Yeah.
Like, is she able to make people appear dead? Is she able to make people appear invisible? Is she where do her powers run out? What's the limit of her power? Or does she even have power? I don't know. I mean, I can only assume that the reason they want her back is because she was doing something they need.
Sure.
And what that thing was, we guessed, at least I guessed, I would assume that's your guess too.
Yeah, I like that idea.
She's bringing people back
from the dead. She's either has power herself, or she's a conduit for some other power.
Sure.
Right? It's one of those things. Either it's her specifically, or it's just that it can funnel through her and they can use it that way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That scene where they're hugging and then they all disappear is really weird. Maybe they all ran off really fast and are like hiding behind the cars.
Maybe. Those splinters they pull out of him are rough, man. Some of them
Super
are huge,
long.
especially the one in the throat. And they're such assholes. Like, he's choking to death. And they're just
Oh
like,
my
are you
gosh.
going to excuse yourself?
Well, because so that scene, yeah, like, he's clearly hurt, but at the same time, he was like an asshole a lot of the time, and he's a chef.
He's a total asshole. He's the
So
Gordon
you think
Ramsay.
and they think that he's like critiquing her food.
Yes.
And they just don't believe
That's
it.
what you thought.
That's what I thought
up
too.
Until he got
up
up
until
and
he
started.
actually, and I was like, oh wait, no, he's actually, he can't breathe.
You were like so embarrassed in the moment of like, Jesus Christ, guy.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really, their relationship to me is just awful.
They haven't had sex in over a year. That's pretty rad.
Well, they did have sex this season.
1 year to the day in that episode.
Yeah. But their relationship is very uncomfortable for me because she's constantly putting him down and he seems like he hates her and she seems like really self-entitled and like she's the more important one in the relationship and it's just like all over the place. And I get that maybe is because of the loss of their child that they're like not able to come together the way they used to.
We don't really see them much before the death.
A very tiny bit.
Very little.
And it's when she has postpartum.
Well, it's when she keeps miscarrying. And that scene with all the like the failed freaking pregnancy tests with all the different kids' names on it. Oof.
Yeah.
That was rough.
Yeah.
That was that would fuck anybody up.
Yeah. And it also like, the focus is on her, right? But he's just as much a part of that experience as she is. I mean, I get that she's the one that's actually miscarrying, so there's more of like a visceral feeling and it's, her body that's rejecting things. But he's, just as they're trying to get pregnant, like he's maybe just as hopeful as she is and then is disappointed and,
They can't
dejected.
have a baby, they can't have a baby, they can't have a baby, miscarriage.
Have a baby.
And then they have a baby and she fucking
leave
kills
it in the car.
in like 12 weeks.
It's insane. See, that's also, to me,
Mentally,
that's one of the unbelievable parts is like, I mean, she clearly is postpartum, right? She's clearly depressed and unwell already.
Yes.
And shouldn't have been left alone with the baby at that point. So there are like factors to it, but like it's so bizarre that she would be trying so hard to have a baby and then just forget it in the car. And it's like she's just strained, right? Like she's so tired and so like ready for a break and
She wasn't eating her placenta jerky.
She didn't eat
Gotta
that
dehydrate
placenta. Yep. Ew. Dehydrate it.
If she was chewing on some placenta jerky, she would have been
Placenta.
like, "Wait, my kid,
My baby is in the car.
Yep,
Go get him.
3 days ago.
He's probably fine.
He's probably fine." One thing that we did not mention is I feel like every show has its like one thing that it's kind of known for, like this totally non-sequential thing, or like, and that is the amount of wine drank in this show.
Oh my god! And
this feels like a wine commercial.
Yeah, it's like and I don't even drink wine that much, but like watching this show, it's one of those things where I'm like, maybe I want a glass of wine.
It's
like
so much.
Every 2 seconds they have a glass, and it's a big part of it too because it's like he has this massive wine collection with all these really old vintage wines, and obviously when he loses his sense of taste, he can't enjoy them at all. But they're always drinking wine. Always.
There's definitely not an episode in this show where someone isn't drinking wine. That's for sure. Yeah. I'd say there's at least 4 to 5 glasses drank in each episode. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Every time the brother comes over, he's immediately like, "Where's the wine?" And he immediately starts drinking like within a minute.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Like,
that's like why he's coming over there.
Yeah.
It's $1,000 bottle
100%.
of wine. Now I don't know what he does for a living.
I don't remember. I feel like it's maybe mentioned in an early episode briefly, but they're all like, he's wealthy.
Yes.
Her dad's wealthy. Sean, we don't really know a whole lot about his family, but it definitely has this like, again, the dynamic that she's the wealthy one, and although he's a successful chef, it's like, her money.
God, her on TV too. She plays that. She plays that so well too.
Yes, she does.
Just that
the broadcast.
When she's in there and she's like hacking away
in the mine.
In the
all
sewer.
These guys. Oh yeah, in the sewer, in the mine.
The mines of Moria. We shall take the mines.
Are, like in the background, like working really hard. She's like, "Let's go!" Haha.
So fake.
So fake.
And then she's got the hot, younger, new one replacing her, and she's like
there's a lot
super
of jealousy, and
she's
very self-conscious, and a lot of the baby stuff also, like it feels like she had a kid because it's like, she, you know, like you were saying in the beginning, she wants to be portrayed and perceived as like this really caring and like great person, and it doesn't even really feel like she wants a kid just for the experience of like, I want to bring a baby into the world with the person I love and raise a little human being. It's like, I want a kid as an accessory, because she keeps wanting to show him off all the time. You know, she wants to bring him into work. She wants to take him downstairs and show people that are coming over. And it just feels very disingenuous.
I feel like every time Leanne is exposed to anything outside of what she knows, which is tomato soup, anytime that she's exposed to like other kinds of food, she becomes like overly sexualized. It's almost like it's corrupting her, right? Like the first time she eats that eel, she like then grabs Julian's dick. She grabs Julian's eel.
Yeah.
And then anytime she's like tasting something new to her, she just all of a sudden turns into this totally different, almost corrupt person.
Well, I think that's
like
intentional in some ways, because food is, that the kind of food that they eat is a luxury.
Sure.
They're not eating food that isn't like extravagant, and that's kind of in line with what a really devout religious person would believe, right? That kind of austere lifestyle where you're not spending time on material, physical things, because it's more about the spiritual higher powers.
Yeah.
So she's eating really plain foods, and then when she has the foods that are like fucking foam or whatever, like, very high class, it is, kind of meant to show this descent into something
greed.
More mundane and
one of the 7 deadly sins, right?
Yeah.
And I guess they're kind of wallowing in a lot of the sins.
Oh, absolutely.
So a couple things we didn't talk about is number 1, the crib scene. Number 2, which that crib scene is just like, what the fuck? They would have 100% been like, dude, get up, get the fuck out. He left the baby on the floor.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, the way the baby was laying,
why is
it
he
looks
in
like
the crib?
he just threw a doll.
Yeah, why is he in a crib?
I don't know.
What is he doing?
I don't fucking know.
What's up with George?
What is up with George? He's really disturbing. He has like the grossest hands and feet.
Well, it's like he's dead.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he came out of out of a grave.
Yes. That's the
kind of outfit.
He's so mean.
That someone like in a movie who's been like buried for like a few weeks.
Yeah.
Or a month or something would come out and their shoes would be a little torn up from, whatever. Mm-hmm. That seems like someone who came out of a grave. His fingernails has dirt in it, like he clawed his way out of the fucking thing, and then the water from the rain washed away the majority of the dirt that wouldn't be. It's all more on the exterior, and he's got it like under his nails. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And when he takes his shoes off, it's all the dirt is in there, like he's been buried.
Yeah,
telling you, I think George has been dead. In fact, I could see those being her parents.
Sure.
That she brought back with her wishful thinking, right? And then they're like, without you, we can't stay like this. So, yeah, there's that. Number 2, George calls them a godless house. And then all of a sudden, Dorothy becomes like uber religious all of a sudden.
I felt like she was doing that to try and convince him and Leanne that she was the right place for Leanne to stay.
It's very possible.
But it's weird because of Sean's, scene with him towards the end where he kind of has this moment of belief, where he's praying with him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Leanne is actually... But Leanne is all over the place with her beliefs. I mean, she was going to Natalie for homeopathy, or there was something else specific that they were talking about, kinesiology, or I don't know if that's a word, but whatever it was. Some more new age concept thing. And then she's like, no, I don't need you. I'm fine now. And then, all of a sudden is religious in a Christian way. So I don't know. I don't know what that is.
And the last thing that I think we'll talk about, because, I mean, I definitely have things here and there. I'm trying to look really quick. I don't know why Leanne swallows her pearl. It's almost like she keeps you said her name's Natalie, the therapist?
Yeah.
Yeah. She keeps Natalie's hair, which we were thinking like some kind of like
Voodoo
witch,
shit.
voodoo curse kind of thing. But placento is slimy. That's your note.
It's a good note.
So, and then she's fucking with Dorothy by like turning the car alarm on and off. And
After
I think that's,
she
of
finds
course,
out.
yeah, that's to screw with her by like, your kid is in the car. Like, you know, you should be drawn out to your car. Like, how could you forget?
Yes.
But anyway, I guess the last question for me is like, I'm confused on, I guess they just kept it super hush hush, but like, how does your kid die and like no one knows about it?
Yeah.
Like everyone who came to the baptism wasn't like, wasn't that kid dead?
No, none of them were.
Right? Like no one knows that her child died.
I think
That's
it's,
fucking wild.
Again,
like how is that not in the news that you left your kid in your car? Like there's no fucking way that a high profile woman like that, who's like a celebrity news person, could leave their kid in their car, which is the kind of shit that they'd be reporting on and calling those people monsters. There's no way she could fucking leave her kid in her car, let the kid die, and not be on the news.
Yeah.
There's no way they could keep that covered up.
It's definitely surprising that nobody would walk by the car because it's out there all night. That baby is there until like 3 a.m.
It's gotta be soundproof.
And it's a busy street. Even being soundproof and with darkened windows, I feel like there's enough foot traffic on that street that somebody, I mean, like, you know, when you're walking, you like glance into people's cars or whatever, right? Because you're just looking around. So that's surprising to me that nobody would have noticed it before she did. But as far as like things being hush hush, it's, again, I think just because of the wealth of her family. I think that her dad was able to pull strings, and obviously she brings it in with her that night and then goes about the rest of the 4 days that Sean's away as though her kid is still alive. I mean, she has the dead baby in her hands as there's like delivery guys coming into their house. Like she's holding a dead baby.
Yeah.
And they're just, you know, putting stuff down on the table or whatever.
But
which
someone
is
in like
wild.
a hazmat suit has to come in and take the kid because it's so fucking decomposed by that point.
4 days.
Well, we get this like visual representation with the cow leg. That's like, this is what the kid looks like.
It's insane, yeah. So, but that's my explanation for how people wouldn't have known, is that there was some type of cover-up that happened because of her father's wealth, that they were able to pull strings to keep it out of, like, you know.
You can fudge it to make it work in a show.
Oh, sure, but in
reality,
life,
there's no fucking way they could keep that hush-hush. I just don't buy it.
Yeah.
Like, they could keep it on the low down, but the fact that no one at her work knows, that no one in her life besides her brother, her father, and her husband know.
And Natalie.
And
that's
Natalie.
The other thing,
there's
too.
no way.
Yeah,
there's
Natalie
just
wouldn't
no
have
way.
told somebody, you know, like...
Well, I mean, they admitted to a fucking nanny, some random nanny they're hiring. So, like, no one... Yeah, that's...
Well, and Sean
that
even
one's
says...
That one's a little unbelievable.
That he told a cab driver when he was like drunk one night.
Yeah.
So there's that too. Like people know who he is. He told a cab driver like that. It would get around for sure, right?
He's portrayed as like Gordon Ramsay in this show.
Exactly.
So there's he'd be like, you know who I met tonight and what he told me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an interesting one for sure. I think that's definitely the one you have to just look past.
Yeah, I think so too.
But they needed to do it because. I guess they didn't need to do it. In fact, I think they shouldn't have done it. I think it would have been more interesting for them to be like, how the fuck do you have a baby? Your baby's dead. But then again, I guess they did have to do it because then people will be calling the cops.
Sure, yeah. It only works when people assume that your baby is still alive, because then it's only a core group of people that are like, it's not alive. That's not a real baby.
Jericho hasn't been dead very long.
No, it's only been like
a couple months.
Yeah. So she would have been on maternity leave. And
so you don't think... Do you think that is Jericho? Brought back from the dead? Or do you think that is a representation that she's brought to life that looks like Jericho?
I think more of that. I don't think that is actually Jericho. I do think that she can bring things back from the dead, and I like the idea that, her aunt and uncle might be her parents, or that other people in that congregation were dead once but are now living because of her. And I think the cricket and the dog obviously proved that she has some ability to do that. But with the doll, unless the doll was made out of Jericho's hair, or had some part of him
Maybe
that was
she had the placenta.
But she didn't, though.
Placenta?
You
right?
said
Or
it that
placenta?
Placenta.
Placenta.
But I like placentia and placento. Both of those are good pronunciations.
Okay.
Placentia. So maybe
it's not placentia?
It's placenta.
Okay. But she has that in the house. That's a piece.
She does.
Is that not a piece of him, though? That'd be a piece of her.
Yeah.
That'd be more
So
of Dorothy than.
I would think that there's a possibility that doll could have had his hair. That's really scary to think about. But assuming he had hair, I know some babies have hair and some don't. But I don't know. It seems like she needs the thing that is dead to bring it back to life if she has that ability.
I feel like she went and fucking dug the kid up. I've said that before.
Yeah.
I think she brought the remains into the house. But then why that baby then turns back into the doll, that I don't have an explanation for.
Right.
So, and she didn't take the baby with her on the day, and no one else would have taken that baby. Her only other people she knows is George and May, and they're not taking the fucking baby. So, where could she have hid that baby? The baby cries while he's holding it, which kind of goes further to your point of she can make people believe something's real around them without it actually being true. So she can distort reality. But that dog really did run off. Now, did that dog go and then die 100 feet from the house around the corner? Did that cricket end up living? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't really know what the extent of her powers are.
So I'll be curious on where the
questions.
family's at in the second season. Will the brother be good riddance? We don't want it back. I think the dad, Sean's going to be handicapped a little bit. He burned his hand pretty badly. I would assume he's got to have something. How far into the future are we going to flash? Is Dorothy going to be completely gone at this point? Is she going to try to return to work completely mentally ill, competing with that bitch who came to her house and was talking shit? Yeah. Everybody's just so
fake and awful. Just very out to get each other, and they don't care who they step on, right, to get to the top, and
no,
it's awful. I hate that so much.
Me as well. So all right, well, we are going to go watch season 2 and see how right or wrong we were, and so we can come back and laugh at ourselves. That's good, though, because when we were doing, Yellow Jackets, or when we do that, we have, a year.
Right.
Before we find out how wrong or right we were.
Now we
same with any of these shows.
Yeah.
But with this one, we get to watch season 2, and then at the end of season 2, we get to kind of, think about that and then make our claims and then go into season 3. It's not all aired or anything, but then we get to go to week again.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
It's going to be so
fun. Let's get to the damn show.
All right.
Let us know if you've seen it. I hope you have, if you're already still here. If you're still here. I'm already brains already in the room on to so.
Placentias.
Bye.
Bye.